Greetings, beautiful humans. It's my Best Self Monday. Today's subject, today's prompt, we're up to month 2, week 2, and today's prompt is all about the subject of grief. And grief it doesn't seem like a really kind of morbid subject, but it's a really powerful subject. And there are all sorts of kinds of grief, and there are all sorts of ways that we avoid feeling grief, and we avoid, or we're not cognizant or really connected to that we are going through the stages of grief. And there are stages of grief, that are real signposts, like, denial and bargaining and God, none of them are coming to me, but there are certain stages. Anyhow, what good is that to us? It can be helpful, if we're going through stages of grief and we don't really realize it, and it can be sort of named and then made sense of, and then it's easier for us to process, as opposed to it's almost like leaving something uneaten on your plate because you don't know what it is, or it doesn't appeal to you, or whatever. But if you can name it and understand that it's in a certain stage of grief, then you can eat that, chew it up and process it and let it move through, let it process, as opposed to staying unprocessed. So unprocessed grief is what the real spirit of this prompt is. In this part of the journal, unprocessed grief, or unwitnessed grief, unacknowledged grief, swallowed and stuffed down grief, intergenerational grief. There's all the ways that grief is in our bodies in all the different ways, because our bodies are all so different. I just had the absolute joy of having my hubby's friends here for a few days, and I've gone through and done all their human design charts and gone, oh, you're a projector and you're a generator and your kids are this and that, and really having a look at, how your personality can be understood through the framework of how your human design chart shows up. How we can make sense to ourselves. But also within that, there's these other little idiosyncrasies, they're called gates. There's these other little parts of us that are all different. So whilst I'm a 6-2 generator, somebody else might be a 6-2 generator, but they've got different idiosyncrasies and different gates going on in their centers. So they're just going to experience the same situation similarly to me, but also nuanced differently to me. And what has this got to do with grief? Everything. It's got everything to do with grief, because we all have different gates and different parts of our human design. So we are going to digest and process grief differently. And that's being said is that we can't judge ourselves, and we can't judge other people. We can't pigeonhole grief. It has to be done in everybody's individual way of processing grief. But the main thing is to process the grief, to witness the grief, to allow it to, it's like the water that you unplug in the sink. You have to allow it time to get through all the pipe and to move through. And that's the same as any kind of big emotional wave. But grief is the same, and often what will happen is that we will avert our witness from grief. We don't really want to sit in all of the emotional feelings and thoughts and having to remake sense of the world because of whatever it is we're grieving. And we can be grieving, grief is the loss of something. We can be grieving the loss of something like a partner or a person, or a pet, or a job, or a career opportunity, or a life lost, a life that we didn't live like grieving the loss of a childhood or the loss of a part of your life because you were in a bad marriage or something, you know. So none of that is to judge any of it or to throw mud on anyone or anything. That does not work, essentially, but it is a way to avert your gaze from grief, is to throw mud and blame and all that sort of stuff, or to thrash against it, to not witness and process the things that means we're resisting, however that is, but witnessing and processing and allowing it to happen, and being and holding ourselves in that process, letting others hold us through that process. And it might be a few days, a day, it might be a week, it might be a few months, it might be a few years, you know. And but witnessing, you know, I'm in this part of the grief, being able to name it and go, that's this part of the grief process, that can be really helpful because it helps with meaning making. So in today's journal prompt, so always remembering that the process or the way, the formula of working through the prompts, if you're doing it by yourself or if you're doing it in a group and somebody's facilitating it, which is what I'm advocating for, but if you're doing it by yourself, is to always check in with those first couple of pages where you have written what your intentions are for putting yourself in a bit of a transformational process by allowing yourself to really journal out your change and all of your insights. So what's your intention? Because it's 1 year, okay? It's a 12-month journal. So what would your intentions be? Like what would you want to achieve by working your way through this journal? And it's not to say this journal's the only thing. It's not an isolated tool or therapeutic, you know, friend. You are more than likely going to be tapping into other things as well as using this. But in the spirit of staying tethered to intentions and being able to really use, you know, the banks of the river, so to speak, to allow your river to flow through. And the banks of the river are a little bit like setting intentions to go, this is where the flow that I want my river to take. So your intentions for the beginning of that you set at the beginning of this journal may change as you go through the months, and I suspect it will have a nuance. You know, you may make changes to it. So what is your intention? And you know, that could be anything from, I would just like to be more self-aware. I would like to stop doing a certain behavior and start doing another behavior. I would like to have some sort of personal transformation. I want to be someone who stops falling into the same patterns and then having the same outcomes all the time, and just taking that set of nuanced self into the next relationship or the next job, but kind of the same outcomes happen with a different set of flavors to it. So always tethering to your intention is really super important part of the process. Now let's whiz on over to month two. Month two says it's February, but if you started this at some other time of the year, randomly picked it up in June, then month two isn't going to be February. That's why I put the month of the year in case you do start in January, like a new year thing. Why I'll actually put the month, name of the month, or I will put the month and also month two if it's the second month that you're starting, which could be, well, here we are in April and it's month two. So forget the word February. Tapping back into what are your grandest intentions for your best self journal. What do I deeply care about when I renew my connection to what's possible? What is actually possible for me if I'm living in full alignment with all of my potentials? What's possible for me when I shed my invisible blocks and feel the emotional and spiritual freedom that anything is possible? There's all sorts of amazing, mind-blowing ways to dissolve blocks, and first and foremost is to spot it and notice it and notice if you are in the shadow state of a certain behavior, or if you're in the gift and the light state of that certain behavior. So let's flip on over. We're meant to have a gig at the local markets the weekend that just went past, and it rained so much the markets got cancelled. Tears. Anywho, week 2. This week, observe and reflect, meaning journal, on your relationship with grief. You know, as a whole, what is your relationship with grief? Your own grief or other people's grief? This is a deep and delicate subject, so please make sure that you have support close by in case you feel triggered and the need for somebody to help support you emotionally. Because yes, if we're stirring up muddy grief by doing this, you might feel out of control emotionally. You're not, but if you're not used to holding those emotions for yourself, you may need someone to help you process and hold those emotions. And it's worth doing it because you do not want to have unresolved grief in your system, because it makes you unwell in so many ways, and it will keep showing up, especially as sadness or anger, in so many ways. Feel into what could be different. What could be different if you could just let go? If you could let go and release and heal all unresolved grief and unprocessed grief, unwitnessed, denied, turn your back on, not happening, shoved down, just walk away and don't deal with the emotional fallout. Just, it's all still in there somehow, and it is impeding on your ability to be your best self in all the ways. And I don't mean to sound like a teacher, I just mean to sound like somebody who knows that when you are your best self, it's a beautiful, freeing, healing, peaceful experience of being a human. Okay, so write that out as much as you can, just as much as you can, and then always embed the learning, put it into practice by answering the second question, which is, what am I going to gain when I can release or reshape what I'm holding as an emotional body of grief? Okay, when I can stop clinging to past events. Some people think that that's impossible, but it's not impossible. It is possible to stop clinging to past events and playing them over and clinging and telling the story again and falling back down the rabbit hole, the negative spiral, by retelling that story in a perspective that is unhealing and dense and unuseful to your best self and to your inner peace and to your best expression moving forward. Yes, some things are not fair, some things are nasty, but to keep reliving the story and gripping onto it and reliving the density of the emotion without processing it and releasing it and letting it go, you're just going to keep that shitty, toxic, dense, emotional stuff inside you that is not going to do you any favors. When I can stop clinging to past events, when I can finally untether from that heavy anchors of grief and unprocessed grief. And I've got this little kind of image that I have. If there's a beautiful body of clear aqua water, that's the most perfect temperature, and it's just surrounded by the most serene white sand and bits of filtered light, and it's just this stunning place that you could just step into and let yourself fall into it. But you have got to let go what is holding you back, okay? These stories and these attachments to how you've been wronged or what really happened badly, and just the way that you hold the story. If you're hanging on to them, you cannot get into that beautiful body of blissful aqua tranquil water, which is your inner peace waiting for you, because you're just too clinging on. And if you could just go, I'm going to let go of the way I'm holding that, and I'm going to let go of the way of holding that. And then you have this panic, like, what if those people get away with something? You know, I need to hold on to my disdain for something, or my grief, or my poor me, or whatever it is. I need to keep hanging on to it so that they don't get away with it. That's often what this, you know, the story is, but not always. It might be something else. Could be something like a pet. You know, you just keep reliving that, and you can't let go of the way you hold the story, and so it keeps hurting you. But to be able to let go of the clinging and let yourself lean right into the inner peace will start to bring new insights. New life events will start to come toward you, new dreams, new ideas, new experiences that are in alignment with what lightness you have now created in your body, because you've let go of how you are holding on to things that created density in your body. And you have a magnet, it's called a magnetic monopole in your body, and the way you hold all your emotions and your density informs what the magnet is being informed to attract to it. So you want to, for the purpose of creating a great magnetic monopole within your own body, is to let go of everything that is dense and lean into everything that is light. Yes, amen, sister. I will get off my preach. Always reach out. I want to know your insights. I want to know your stories. I want to know your thoughts. If there's anything else you want me to bring to this space, otherwise I'll just keep showing up however I feel on the day, in the spirit of offering something to the world, because I really want people to feel that aqua body of inner peace. I really want people to have a beautiful internal magnetic monopole that is attracting the life to yourself and situations to yourself that are more in alignment with your most beautiful, best self, and not your wounded, grieved, unhealed stories and patterns that are not actually giving your magnetic monopole a really good set of instructions in terms of what to attract to you. The more dense you are, the harder the world looks, you know. Also, I haven't done this before, but I got this little thing at the beginning of the year. It's the Moonology daily quotes. I thought, I'll just share them with you. It is the flippin' eclipse, right? New moon eclipse. So apparently this is huge in terms of energy. Good time to let go. Good time to put out into the world. This is what I want to stop gripping on to, holding me away from that beautiful aqua pond. This is what I want to let go of, and this is why. This is what I want to lean into instead. It feels hard. It feels like I am letting certain people get away with things. It feels like if I let go of that grief, I don't really love that child I lost, you know, and that isn't true at all, at all. So Monday, April the 8th, new moon eclipse in Aries, Sydney time 4:20 on April the 9th. London time 19:20, New York time 14:20, LA time 11:20. Today brings new moon eclipse in Aries, the first sign of the zodiac. If ever there was a day to hit reset and start all over again with some powerful intentions, this is the day. So if you haven't got the journal, you can get it on amazon.com.au. Also, if you would like to hold a circle group and take a group of people through, so you can hold space for each other and bring that beautiful, full cup of beautiful energy and empowerment that comes with a group, then you can get that purple copy of the facilitator's version of this. And you can also get that sort of light minty green copy if you need more space to do your journaling. If you're someone who actually likes to do a lot more writing and you want to keep it all together, there's that little green one as well. All available on Amazon. You might have to put my name in because there's probably 24,000 My Best Self journals in there. So if you type in My Best Self Journal Roslyn-Loxton, then that's going to come up for you. If you're in Australia.com.au, if you're anywhere else.com for your book. I am sending you big encouragement and big love for your best self and for your best life. Until next time, I will bid you adieu.